All right, so before we jump in and kind of get willy-nilly with some of the videos, and I getting to play a little bit of World of Warcraft, I did literally just leave the movie theater, and with my mom, who is a age old Evil Dead fan. She got me into the series when I was like really young. W mom. But yeah, we've watched every single Evil Dead movie I've taken her to see, and a brand new one just came out, Evil Dead Burn. And I kind of did want to talk about this movie just a little bit. We readily admit I was not. I'm not a terribly big fan of like modern Evil Dead. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, mainly because I don't know if you can tell I'm not like super stoked on on this one. But I feel like a lot of these modern movies, in my opinion, have kind of they don't really have some of the I don't know if it's the charm or the personality, whatever you want, however you want to phrase that. They just don't quite have some of the aspects that I love of the original Evil Dead movies. And this movie had me feeling very much similar to the previous one. If you guys didn't see that, that was Evil Dead Rise. And I know I'm saying that, but I think in the end I might have actually preferred Evil Dead Rise over this one. This one was not bad. I think my problem with these movies is I'm already kind of developing an expectation of what to get out of these. And what I mean by that is if you are somebody who like me is an old Sam Raimi fan and you love old school Evil Dead and even partly what he did with Drag Me to Hell, which I will admit Drag Me to Hell is probably the best Evil Dead movie since The Evil Dead. Unless you want to count Ash versus Evil Dead, which that's a go watch that show too. I love that one. What I mean by that is some of the personality is if you haven't watched some of those older ones, they're not just some of the most gory, brutal movies imaginable. For their time back then, they're also like, in a way, they're also like super humorous and super funny and there's so much like lore and stuff that they build on in those old movies, especially once they start getting into like Army of Darkness and stuff. Like they really start building on the lore and there's like a whole world with Bruce Campbell and everything. And I feel like that is kind of my problem when we start looking into the modern movies. They just don't have some of those aspects. Like there's like this new one we just watched. There's barely, and I know maybe there's a reason for this, but there's barely any humor. The lore is like extremely surface level. It's basically the same. It's basically the same lore from the OG movies. And I don't need to watch this. Why am I watching this? Sorry. But it's basically the lore of the old movies, and it's like so these new movies aren't even like building off of the old ones. Odin Salty in chat says, "Yeah, a lot of modern movies do that. It's strange how many that have the same feeling nowadays, but I figure it's mostly companies just throwing money at a project, just expecting it to put itself together." Well, no, I agree with you. From what I understand, though, it's largely not even just movie studios, but a lot of like video game companies, the publishers and major companies they're putting money behind things that are guaranteed wins. And largely that's where like a company like Xbox, that's what Xbox is doing right now. Is Xbox is moving away from making all of these small indie games and that when they brought in the new lady, Asha Sharma? Why did I say shawarma? uh, when they bring her in, I don't know if you've seen recently, but Xbox has been gung ho on like we are making, we're going full on. We're telling our companies to make the next Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Gears, and Halo. Like they're shifting away from stuff that is obvious, arguably could be more creative and more artistic in terms of smaller indie games, and they're just saying, hey, we need to just put money and resources behind stuff that has a big IP and has name recognition. And that's largely, in my opinion, where the horror movie and horror and maybe not even just the horror movie, where movie making and media are artistic endeavors is largely at. From what I understand, the main reason why a lot of these, the main reason why some of the one of the only genres of movies that are able to get funding and are able to get sequels, one of the only genres is horror. and there's only one reason for that, and that's because of the the budget versus the amount of money they make. Um, Luckily for a lot of these movies, um, Sam Raimi, Ryan in chat says Sam Raimi has said the new Evil Dead movies are to launch new directors just to show off new horror filmmaking rather than add to the lore. Has he really said that in particular? Wow. And I will say that's another thing is Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell's names are in this movie as like executive producers, and no offense to those guys, but I cannot tell because like I was saying, the personality that those dudes have, it is just not here. I'm and nothing's. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I guarantee you, they probably just gave Sam like a bunch of money, and they're like, "Hey, let us put your name on here," so you know, to try and make some people happy, and that's probably it. They probably just gave him money to throw their name on there. Bruce and Sam probably didn't have to get off the couch and made a bunch of money. That's interesting. I wonder, yeah, if Sam said that. I mean, it kind of does feel like that, but like I was saying, like if you guys want, like I would recommend if you guys haven't seen Drag Me to Hell, that's like the best Evil Dead anything since Evil Dead. Go check that one out if you're, I don't know, if you're in my mindset. Yeah, Bethesda had big news recently since Xbox is on their rear now, getting them to work. Exactly. But what I was saying before is the main reason why horror movies get so many sequels. Like in the movie, I think in the theater that I just left, in the trailers they were showing like the next Insidious movie, which this is what, like Insidious 5 or 6 or whatever. The main reason is that these horror movies are so incredibly cheap to make, and they generally turn a profit, and that's why the horror genre is just absolutely filled to the brim with sequels, and those movies are everywhere. It's because it's again, it's what's the term I'm thinking of? I don't know. I can't. Again, budget versus return, and I mean to an extent, like it's good because we are kind of getting like I don't want to say trash, but we are getting like we're getting a good flow of horror movies, but I don't know. I kind of it just makes me wish like all the other genres were like that. Um, but nevertheless, back to the movie. I guess overall, again, I don't need to go on a tangent on this movie. It wasn't that interesting, unfortunately, but it was fine. It gives you everything that you want, and it's so weird for me to say that. Like you get no, you're not getting everything. Never mind. I was talking that contradicts what I was saying earlier about what some of the character traits that this doesn't have. It gives you all of the modern wants that you desire out of a modern Evil Dead movie, but it just doesn't fulfill, in my opinion, the classic desire for what you want out of an Evil Dead movie. It's fine basically in every trait. There's a new horror movie in theaters now every week. At first, I was super happy, but I'll be honest, I'm getting a little burned out, says Ryan. Oh, no, no, no. I 100% agree with you. Um, and again, it's because of the budget. It's because these movie companies are making so much money off of cheap, cheap endeavors. But they're all cheap. And like you look at some of the movies that are making money right now. Obsession, was it Backrooms? I haven't seen either of those. Both of those are like I don't know if you guys know this, but both of those guys that directed those movies are former YouTubers or whatever. So you have like movie studios who now are reaching out to freaking YouTubers who like make like 2 minute shorts or something on YouTube, and they're handing these directors like millions to go direct a movie, and that's because again, paying a YouTuber on their first movie is probably incredibly cheap. Like how much are those like if you were to throw like ChazmaN, here's $5 million to make something, and I'm like, oh wow, $5 is a lot of money to me. But like, if Sam Raimi asked to make a movie, you got to throw like I don't know, about 5 minutes. You got to throw multiple millions at Sam to make one versus like some YouTuber off the couch. Otis all this says I find horror isn't actually scary for the most parts, but maybe that's because I'm not a kid anymore. It depends. Like there's certain. Gosh, when was the last really scary movie I saw? I feel like some of the scariest stuff I see is like smaller horror movies. Like I remember thinking Babadook was kind of got me in a couple areas. That's a good point. I can't remember the last time I was really scared, but like you were saying, Obsession was really good. Backrooms is all right, says Skylar. I've heard Obsession was very good. I do really want to get out to that. But again, I literally just watched this movie like an hour ago. I'm not gonna delve on it too deep, mainly because if you guys really want to see my opinion, I did a video on Evil Dead Rise when that came out. That's somewhere on my channel. You can go check that one out. But yeah. Or the last one thing that gave me the creeps was maybe It or something, but I had a phobia for clowns as a kid, so maybe that scared me. Hokum was kind of scary, said Ryan. I think I heard of Hokum. Actually, I just remembered a modern scary movie that kind of creeped me out. It was pretty scary. Was one of there was a Ouija movie that I remember seeing. Hold on, I'll get the exact name. One of the Ouija movies I saw, I actually was pretty scared by. Which one was it? Here, I'll pull up the name. Was this movie really from 2014? I don't think it was. Was it Ouija Origin of Evil? But even then, that movie's like, yeah, that was the movie. Okay, yeah, Ouija Origin of Evil. But even then, that movie's like 10 years old. Goodness, I wanted to say that's modern. Even I guess I can't necessarily even call that modern. But that movie was pretty freaky deaky. I would recommend that if you want to see something scary. But there's other stuff that I just never got around to see. Like, I still haven't even seen Hereditary. I've heard so many people say good things about Hereditary. That's been one on my backlog that I'll watch someday. The first one's terrible, said Ryan. Yeah. It was Origin of Evil. That's the one I saw that I actually really liked. That was actually a really good one. Go watch that one. Now I get creeped out by like real life stuff, like somebody exploring a place with a dark past or messed up stuff. Yeah, then don't watch Origin of Evil. That's a very good one. But yeah, gosh, that's all I really got to say. Again, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this movie, Evil Dead Rise, Evil Dead Burn. I just got all of the same vibes and feelings from the last one, Evil Dead Rise. So, and even then, I don't know if I necessarily liked any of these characters more than the characters in the last one. Like the main Deadite in the last one was more the redhead. She was more interesting than anything I got out of this one. So I don't know. Again, not a bad movie. Evil Dead Burn. It was fine. Well, gosh. All right. I think that's all I got to say. Again, fine movie. Go check it out. That's it. All right. I didn't like a single character from Evil Dead Burn. Says Ryan. Yes, I 100% agree with you. I don't know if any of the characters like came off as like likable. I mean, even the main girl, I kind of just didn't care about her. Even the one Evil Dead remake, what was that, like 2018, 2019? I even feel like she was slightly more interesting than this main girl. Alice, I think her name was the new one. I don't know. It was fine. I hate to just keep saying that, but that's honestly my opinion. It was about as fine a movie as can be. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still had a good time. I took my mom and all right, y'all. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Well, looks like you've reached the end, haven't you, you imbeciles? On EnteR ChazmaN, you'll witness gaming brilliance beyond your comprehension. ChazmaN Live brings the drama. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 5:30 p.m. EST. Long Plays delivers full journeys, uncut and unspoiled. Join the Patreon, Discord, Instagram, and TikTok below, if you can manage it. Still not following EnteR ChazmaN? Then mediocrity clearly suits you.